Welcome back. My name is Arya, and I don't waste your time. So let's get straight into it. Data is the most important thing in investing, and actually actionable data, having the information to be able to make good decisions in a timely fashion that results in, put it simply, making you money. And so, ladies and gentlemen, in today's video, I seek to do exactly that. I seek to provide to you the 5 free services that provide the most amount of data without actually costing you anything. Because at the end of the day, why should you have to pay money in order to be able to make money? And so without further ado, this is the Yahoo Finance application, which is in fact the first software that we're going to be talking about today. This is probably the most bare bones, the most basic of any of these websites, any of these tools that you have available to you. Essentially, the most important segment of Yahoo Finance that you end up getting is the portfolio tracker side of it. It is a completely no cost to you portfolio tracker. You could go in here, you could make various different watch lists and whatnot. And so this is mostly a mobile app as opposed to a desktop, but I'm showcasing the desktop version here. So me personally, I probably use this multiple times per week, just very simply checking prices and whatnot. And I've already gone ahead in the past and loaded up a bunch of different stocks that I actually own. And essentially you could kind of just load all your different holdings. Maybe you have various different brokerages and whatnot, and you could put all your different holdings into one of these portfolios and it tracks it for you. That's pretty much it. And let's just say, I don't know, you bought this in June of 2022 at probably a much lower stock price. You could put that in, and then based off that information, it's able to tell you some very, again, basic information, stuff like what is your total gain, your daily profit and loss, what is the current market value of your holding, what is the cost basis of your holding, that type of stuff. Again, very basic stuff, not much to it. Essentially, kind of just a very bare bones portfolio tracker, that type of stuff, just for searching up the stock price and whatnot. Moving further down the list, we have Snowball Analytics. And this one is Yahoo Finance, but actually a little bit upgraded, and you have a lot more actionable information regarding your portfolio. So you kind of have a couple different options in actually putting your stocks onto this. The first option, of course, is actually just putting it in manually. And so me personally, for my own personal account, that's what I ended up doing. I just put my holdings in manually. I only have like 5 companies, right? So it wasn't too hard to kind of just go back. And actually, I had it all on Yahoo Finance. So I just went down the list on Yahoo Finance and I put my holdings in manually, but it's up to you. You can connect using, there's a couple of these. There's like Yodlee and there's SnapTrade. There's a couple of these services where you kind of got to create like a ticket on your brokerage, and then it's able to load all your information in. I actually tried the brokerage version of loading all your holdings into Snowball, and some of the information didn't load. It didn't work perfectly. It didn't show my performance returns. So again, I ended up filling everything manually. And so this is kind of what it looks like. You are told your total value of the portfolio, the total profit, that type of stuff. Very similar information to what we just saw in Yahoo Finance. But on top of that, you have some more actionable information available to you. First and foremost, you have the IRR, the internal rate of return. And so this essentially shows you the compound annual growth rate of your portfolio, meaning how much it's going to return to you per year on average, that you've experienced in the past. So for example, obviously, maybe I bought some stocks 2 years ago, I bought some stocks 6 months ago. It takes everything and it annualizes it and shows me a percentage return. And so you can see you're given 2 numbers. One, you're given the IRR of total for your account, and you're also given the IRR for your current holdings. And this is kind of just a demo portfolio. This isn't actually my portfolio. But as you can see, if we simply toggle on the IRR for everything, you could see that with these holdings that were, again, purchased at various different times, we have various different IRRs. So for example, Costco has on average returned about 30% per year since the time that this demo portfolio bought into it. And at the same time, something like Volkswagen, it's stayed relatively flat, meaning it's returned 0% per year for however many years it's been held, right? So again, some more useful information, and then you could toggle on and put all these different information. I'm not going to go through it all. You could pause if you want to take a read. It is a little bit more oriented to the dividend investor land of things. Like there is a bunch of other dividend tools and that type of stuff available to you here. You can also directly compare to the S&P 500. So over here, if you take a peek, you could see that in this scenario, on the all-time view, which it seems this demo portfolio was made in August of 2020, the portfolio is actually about 12% above the S&P 500. So had this demo portfolio been invested in the S&P 500 at the same time that it bought into all these different stocks, it would have actually returned 12% lower. So there is a couple of these things. automatically does it for you, and you could track directly against the S&P 500. And it doesn't have to be the S&P 500. For example, we could put on SCHG, which you guys know it's probably my favorite ETF, and the SCHG loads in here. So you can see actually the portfolio is done even better than, SCHG is ahead of the portfolio by 16%. So it's just massively crushing this portfolio. It makes sense. The holdings aren't that great. There's a couple other features around. So there's like a dip finder. It just takes it next to the 200-day moving average. There's a couple other stuff. They do offer a premium version, but as you can see, like me personally, I just get by with a free version. I manually input my holdings into it, and all this information is available to you completely for free. They do have an app as well, and honestly, the user interface, I'm very impressed with it. I think this is probably one of the best websites or apps that we're going to be viewing today. To summarize, it's a portfolio tracker, but you have a good amount of analytics available to you. You can track your performance and that type of stuff. The third website that we're going to be looking at today, and honestly, this is probably the big name website that I would assume most of you are familiar with. It is in fact Seeking Alpha. Seeking Alpha, let me start out by saying this, it is an incredible website. There's a plethora of data. There's the articles on Seeking Alpha, which are just an incredible resource. But unfortunately, most of these incredible features are locked behind the paid tier of things. And you could start out with $5 a month and unlock all that type of stuff. But even the bare bones version of Seeking Alpha is still useful for some things. And so I've loaded up Amazon here just as an example, but there's a whole bunch of information going on here. And I really want to hone in on maybe a couple of these tabs at the top. Number one, obviously the financials tab. This is probably like one of the most useful features, at least with Seeking Alpha, is that you're able to see all the different financial statements of a business, and it's kind of neatly organized, put into rows, and it's like relevant information. Obviously, the actual real SEC documents are very comprehensive, and definitely more comprehensive than this. At the bottom here, they've done a couple ratios for you, that type of stuff. And so there's a good amount of information here that you could use, and you could, for example, if you're wondering, oh, how much did Amazon do in net income? And you're given that number and all that type of stuff. Additionally, obviously, the cash flow statement, the most important statement, you have information on that type of stuff, and it's kind of sorted here for you by year. You could obviously adjust a couple things and have, for example, the latest on the right. You could sort it into quarterly view, so on and so forth. I think you guys get the idea here. Additionally, another tab that is probably pretty useful. Furthermore, another tab that is pretty useful, at least with Seeking Alpha here, is the valuation tab. And this is probably one that I actually end up using, I don't know, probably on a monthly basis. I'll check up with Seeking Alpha. I would go through here and specifically check if, for example, the forward PE ratio is GAAP or non-GAAP estimates. You might notice there's a difference between them. Now that I look at it, actually, there is no difference. But for example, something like Salesforce. Salesforce, when you look at the forward PE GAAP versus non-GAAP, there's a massive difference, because Salesforce, they're very funny with the way they do their accounting. They end up taking a bunch of items out of it. So in reality, actually, Salesforce is trading at like a 43 PE. But if you look on like Yahoo Finance and they have that information available to you, it'll only show the 26. And this is what I mean when I say, like, as an investor, the information that you have available to you is highly important. You need to be able to know if that information is accurate. And technically, it isn't inaccurate of Yahoo Finance to show a 26 PE, but they should probably clarify and say that is the non-GAAP PE for this business compared to the GAAP PE, which is what we actually care about. And this is only one small example. There's a plethora of more examples of this type of thing, especially when you dive into kind of these like speculative companies, right? Another case of this would be something like ServiceNow, a very egregious case of this. So if you look on the non-GAAP, you might think, oh, even on the trailing, right? Even on the trailing, you might look at the non-GAAP PE of 73. Oh, you know what? Not too bad. This is a business that's growing like 30% per year. And, 73 PE for that fast of a growing business, 99% retention rate software business, it doesn't seem too bad. And, you might buy a couple shares at just shy of $1,000, right? In reality, the GAAP PE is actually just shy of 170. So this is what I mean. Again, when the information available to you, you need to be careful where you're getting it from. These type of things actually do lead investors to make purchase decisions that they later end up regretting. I know a lot of investors who would buy in at a 70 PE and a lot of investors who would not buy in at 160 PE. Going back to it, Seeking Alpha is useful for these type of things. They have a very comprehensive library of information and data that is available to you, and you can actually look at one article per day for free. So Seeking Alpha, if you have the premium version, You could look at all these different articles, as many as you want and whatnot. And so they have this like very big, broad network of writers who write very good, detailed articles. Every day you do have one of those articles available to you for free. This is probably one of the other great aspects of Seeking Alpha. Like they're kind of known for having these articles and whatnot. By the way, you should check out this article by my good friend Dividend Dude while you're at it. Now, the one part, unfortunately, with Seeking Alpha that I'm not too enamored with is they don't really have like a charting feature, right? So again, if we go back here to, for example, ServiceNow, we go down to the financials and whatnot, and you have all this different information available to you. It's kind of just shown in like a column and like row type of way, right? Like you're not really given it in a visualized manner. They do have a charting feature, which you could toggle on, but admittedly, it's a little bit clunky. In my opinion, it doesn't really look quite right. You could start toggling on a bunch of different information on here and start looking at it over the 5-year time horizon. I don't know, me personally, you'll see a little bit later on in the video, but there is like a better option to this when it at least comes down to charting. I'm personally not too enamored with this. Like it doesn't really have all the functionalities. Why is there like a zero line? I'm not sure if there's a way to change this around and all that type of stuff. Again, a little bit clunky. Unfortunately, the shortcoming with Seeking Alpha, like it's a great portfolio tracker, a lot of comprehensive information and data, but when it comes down to actually visualizing that data and being able to spot trends over time, it falls a little bit short, which makes sense. This is like a dividend-oriented website. It's not really made for this type of things, but just something I wish they would have in the future at least. Moving on here, and this is a very special one. This one I hold very close and dear to my heart because this is a website that honestly I've never seen anyone use, and I kind of stumbled upon it because a friend told me. As far as I know, there's absolutely no subscriptions, no paid premium tiers, nothing. They just work completely based off ads, and so the entire website is free, just completely brilliant, gives you access to like 20 years worth of data. The reason why this one in particular is incredible is that it has all the great parts of Seeking Alpha and all the great information that comes from Seeking Alpha. And then on top of that, there's a couple extra features that I just find super handy to have. So for example, like we had the financials tab in Seeking Alpha, you have the exact same thing here. So you have access to your income statement, your balance sheet, cash flows, and they even have a ratios tab. So you could go through and, for example, we have the price to earnings ratio here. We have the free cash flow yield or the dividend yield. You go down the list, there's a bunch of other stuff. The tax rate even, right? Like I think Seeking Alpha has most of this information, but it's kind of in various different tabs. This one, more neat manner of things. Now, the part where this website excels beyond Seeking Alpha, and the reason why I love it so much, is that when you toggle on something like, for example, the PE ratio, right? You toggle on the PE ratio, you are given a historical chart of Apple's PE ratio for the past however long. So this is on the 1-year time frame here, but we could chuck it on, for example, the 10-year time frame. And this is able to show us Apple's PE ratio logged, I believe this is weekly or every 2 weeks or so, give or take, logged every 2 weeks or so over the past 10 years. Additionally, you're given some other information such as the PE ratio total return over the past 10 years. So the PE ratio has actually went from roughly 16 times 10 years ago to 35 times today, and that's 113% change over the past decade. In other words, had the PE ratio stayed flat, your returns would have been half what they've been in the past 10 years. And when you scroll down here, this is personally my favorite part of this website, it gives you the average PE ratio over time. And this is, like when I talk about having valuable information available to you as an investor to be able to make decisions, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You can go down here and you can go on this website completely for free again. And let's just say you're kind of debating selling Apple. Like Apple's ran up a lot. The PE ratio looks expensive at least because you, the investor, the past 10 years, you've noticed it's been like a 20, 25 PE. Why is it at 35, right? So you'll go look here. You have a suspicion and you'll go confirm it. And you'll see that, yes, indeed, Apple is trading at the highest point it's ever traded at. And we had a brief period of give or take 2-3 months in December, January of 2020, 2021, where the PE ratio was higher, but those very briefly held. You could see that over the past, even call it 15 years, Apple has never been more expensive than it is today. I mean, this is frankly ridiculous. And so you could look at this and you'll see the average PE ratio and you'll see that it's trading at like 35 times. And over the past 10 years, the average has been significantly lower, roughly 26 times PE. The past 15 years, 25 times PE. So this is like kind of what I'm talking about. And it's not just exclusive to the PE ratio. You could chuck on here the price of free cash flow. You guys know that I personally like investing based off of free cash flows for the most part, that is. And your suspicion would be correct. Apple is trading at the highest price to free cash flow it is ever traded at. Over the past 20 years, Apple's average price to free cash flow was significantly lower than what it is sitting at today, right? So I'm not here to hate on Apple, but again, this type of thing is like the level of information that's available to you. Now, you could do it. Now, you could look at this information a different way as well. For example, if I toggle on for Amazon here, you'll notice that it's trading at 40 times free cash flow. And over the past, I don't know, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, it's traded at literally double, right? So Amazon is like half as expensive as it's been over the past, probably its entire life, right? So this type of information is also available to you. Of course, be wary of, like, for example, with Amazon, of course, because of the amount of capital expenditures they do, it's a little bit muddy, the price to free cash flow figures and that type of stuff. But that's a whole other side of investing. In summary, great website, like great amount of information. And then more importantly, it unlocks a lot of features that I just don't see anywhere else being given away for free. Unfortunately, the shortcomings with finance charts is the lack of a portfolio tracker. That's the only thing that kind of sucks with it. You're not able to track your investments and, be able to have all those information that is available to you in something like Seeking Alpha or even Snowball Analytics, that type of stuff, being able to track your investments, how much you've gained on them. And more importantly, being able to have like weighted average metrics. Like, wouldn't it be cool to have a weighted average PE ratio for your portfolio? And more importantly, like, your charting is a little bit restricted to specifically the data that they have on here. Nonetheless, still a pretty good website. It does lack in some places. And so this is kind of what I've been building up to this entire video. In my opinion, the website that just has it all, that you're able to track your portfolio, you're able to have analytics on that portfolio, you're able to research stocks and have a very broad number of data points available to you that you can track over time. And then most importantly, the data and KPIs that you have available to you are 100% accurate. You don't have to worry about the fact that maybe this forward PE on ServiceNow, it's sitting at 70 times. What if in reality, it's actually 150 times? And ladies and gentlemen, I present to you FinChat.io. FinChat.io is by far the most comprehensive stock research tool, website, software, you name it. They have everything. For starters, let's start with the portfolio tracker. And this is my real life portfolio that I track completely publicly on my Twitter account, on the YouTube, everything. And so you might see there's a whole bunch of metrics on the screen right now. This is the weighted average of my portfolio. If you take a look, for example, the weighted average forward PE of my portfolio sits at roughly 27 times next year's earnings. At the same time, my forward price to free cash flow sits at just shy of 27 times. Curious about the gross profit margin of your portfolio? That's 64%. And you could put in literally any metric you could possibly imagine. We could probably scroll on here for God knows how long, but for example, if you wanted to know the forward EV to sales of your portfolio, you could toggle that on. EV to EBIT, you could toggle that on. And there's a lot of other margins and return on invested capital and all that type of stuff. If you could imagine it, FinChat probably has it. I've even put in the weighted average free cash flow and stock-based comp of my portfolio to directly compare and see how much of my portfolio's free cash flows are eaten up by stock-based compensation. Of course, I assume this is going to improve over time. That's the thesis with most of these businesses that I have in my portfolio. But you could even track stuff like that. If you wanted to know the weighted average market cap of your portfolio, you could track that. But ladies and gentlemen, FinChat doesn't stop right there. There is a whole other stock research side of things. If you click on any different company, or you could even search for all these different companies, you're given a plethora of data. So remember the main dashboard part of Seeking Alpha? We kind of have something similar, except there's a lot more information on here. We're given both the valuation on a trailing and forward basis of these businesses, alongside the future growth metrics, alongside the margin structure of the business, the capital efficiency, the financial health with the balance sheet and all that type of stuff. We were given all that information on the same page. So if you remember with Seeking Alpha, it was multiple different tabs at the top. We're given all that information here. And it doesn't stop there. If you go over to the financial side of things, you're given the same income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, the ratios chart, but then there's one more. There's the segment and KPIs. Now, this is the single biggest differentiator of FinChat versus any other website there is on the internet. There is no other stock research platform that provides to you this level of KPIs. What do I mean by that? For example, of course, we know that Amazon isn't just an e-commerce business. They have a lot more than that. And so what FinChat lets you do is it lets you sort by those various different revenue segments. If we specifically wanted the online stores of Amazon and we just wanted to look at that, FinChat has it. So we could see that only the online stores part of Amazon has grown at roughly 14% over the past decade, and this is the amount of revenue per year. Now, if we wanted to also put the third-party sellers and kind of stack that up against the online stores part of Amazon, we're able to do that. And so we could see that over the past decade, that has grown way faster and has caught up as a percentage of revenue. It is currently sitting at, I want to say, maybe around 2/3 of Amazon's online store count. It grew 31% over the past decade. You want to toggle on the advertising revenue? You can do that. Subscription services? You can do that. AWS? You can also do that. And so all of a sudden, we got like a jumbled mess of a bunch of different data points here. But no need to worry, FinChat is a brilliant platform and you could change the way the information is presented to you. You could put it into a stacked bar chart and you could see over time, for example, the yellow here has made up a bigger and bigger percentage of the total revenues. Ladies and gentlemen, it does not stop there. I've gone into the charting tab of things. And so you're not stuck just looking at like the Mag 7 stocks. You could look at significantly smaller businesses. For example, if you wanted to look at Netflix's total average number of paying members, that information is available to you. This, to my understanding, is in billions. So there's actually 240 million memberships that Netflix has in this period, right? So there's a lot of different things that we could do with this. And it's not just restricted to Mag 7 stocks. I know that's what I'm showing here. But for example, like let's just take a much smaller market cap business in Palantir here. They have a bunch of different information on that. So again, we could just toggle on the split of government and commercial revenues and put it on a stacked bar chart. You could see the kind of difference between the two there. Again, this is in billions here. I've just now toggled on millions, so it looks a little bit better. But as you could see the kind of the growth between the two, and you could directly compare it. You could see that, oh, government revenue has grown much faster than the commercial revenue side of things. And if you wanted to take it a step further, click on percentage change, and it shows you the percentage change over time. So if we just quickly click hide on the government and commercial revenue, you could see that these are the revenue growth rates of these two parts of the business over the past, give or take, 4 years. If we chuck it on annually, we're able to see that information for a little bit longer. Of course, Palantir has only IPO'd since like 2020. That's why this doesn't go too far back. If we look at something like HIMS here, again, same information is available to us. You can kind of sort by thousands, millions, billions, whatever you want. But I think you guys get the point here. And then to kind of squeeze it in at the end here, it is called finchat.io because they have a chat GPT integrated part of the website as well. So if you're like me and you're pretty lazy and don't really want to listen to hour-long earnings calls, what you could do is you could ask the Copilot that they have available to you to literally summarize that earnings call for you. So I didn't specifically ask in this prompt to have it summarized to me, but I did ask about the excessive capital expenditures in the recent, call it 4 quarters or so, right? And this was the response that they gave me. It told me exactly at which stage in which earnings call, what was said, and it even gives me a source here. It says Ruth Porat. I believe this guy's the CFO or something like that. It says who said it, all that type of stuff. It gives me some information on the capital expenditures, gives me the quarterly data for it, gives me a summary of everything that was just said. And then it even goes to the slides where that information was displayed. Also giving me a chart at the bottom here, right? Like a lot of various different information, some related questions as a follow-up. I think you guys are getting the point here. FinChat is just by far the most comprehensive. You have the portfolio tracker, you have the charting, you have the segment and KPIs, you have the Copilot available to you. There's a screener, which I don't really use. Not sure why it was on light mode there. There's a screener, which I personally am not a person that really likes to use screeners. But again, you could put in a bunch of different metrics. There's an earnings calendar. You could play around with this. And honestly, there's a lot more tabs, as you could see, that I've just personally not really discovered or had the time to go through. But I think you guys get the point. Now, one big caveat to this is the full functionality version of this website. Now, you do have 5 years of historical data available to you, and you're able to track your portfolio and gain access to the Copilot. All the features are available to you, it's just slightly more restricted. With that being said, if the version of things that we've been using this whole time for the past however long is interesting to you, if you use the link in my description, you could get 2 weeks completely for free with no obligation of paying for afterwards. Out of all the 5 websites I showcased today, this is the only one that I'm actually affiliated with. Now, with that being said, you could go back 5-6 months ago and you could see I was actually using FinChat prior to even being affiliated with them. I just think it's good software. The amount of information available to you and the ease of access to it, again, with no obligation to sign up for a pro plan or premium plan afterwards, you could get 2 weeks of full functionality completely for free as long as you use the top link in the description. If you learned anything new in this video and you like the fact that I don't waste your time, you should consider subscribing, and you can always go back on that decision if you end up not liking the videos, but I highly doubt that. Thank you for watching and have a great day.